My name is Tannahill, and I am a playwright. And in the 1960s, another young playwright named Václav Havel critiqued the repressive communist regime of Czechoslovakia with plays like The Garden Party and The Memorandum. After participating in the Prague Spring in 1968, Havel was blacklisted, monitored by the secret police, and eventually imprisoned several times. During this period, his plays were banned. And this was, of course, because the regime feared the power Havel's plays had to shine light on political tyranny and sway public opinion. Upon Havel's release from prison, he formally entered politics and was elected president of Czechoslovakia in 1989. While reading about Havel's trajectory from playwright to president, I was struck by several things. The first was that Havel's theater was not a leisure activity for the elite. It was not seen as surplus or excess, but rather as a powerful tool in undermining political authority. It was, in fact, an essential act of resistance. The second thing I was struck by was that the Czechoslovakian public in the 1960s not only valued theater, but were literate enough in its form for Havel's plays to possess this revolutionary potential. His plays very well may have come and gone without the government's notice, without history's notice, had his fellow citizens not considered the theater a site of discourse and dissent. Had they not been reared within a long tradition of theatrical engagement, within a long tradition of literary and cultural immersion that allowed them to see the value and relevance of Havel's work. And the third thing I was struck by was how completely unlikely such a figure would be in Canada. Now, granted, we do not live in a climate of unbearable political and cultural repression as the citizens of Czechoslovakia did. We are not in the midst of an incendiary uprising seeking to topple the government. We are not in the midst of, but who is to say in the next 150 years we will not be? Who is to say in the next 150 years the fundamental freedoms we currently take for granted won't be critically jeopardized? And should that situation arise, or any myriad of subtler incursions on our democratic integrity, are we equipped as citizens to resist tyranny as Havel and so many of his peers in Czechoslovakia did? What will be the tools at our disposal? Social media? Though perhaps not. Our capacity to congregate and protest? Perhaps not. Our free press? Perhaps not. What about the arts? What role will the arts play in safeguarding our democracy and the freedoms it is supposed to guarantee? As a playwright living in uncertain times, I think about these questions quite a bit. I think about what value and what change can possibly come about from a group of people congregating in a shared space to tell and watch a story. Why do this? Why, in the midst of a brutal civil war, would the Al-Mashish Theater stage street performances in Darfur? Why would Susan Sontag stage Waiting for Godot in Sarajevo as bombs cut power to the theater? Why did Augusta Boal tackle government corruption through plays staged by actors and audience members in the favelas of São Paulo? The answer I come back to is, I would guess, the same answer that those artists came to. That theater, and by extension the arts entire, has the power to manifest change. Change in an individual, change in a group of individuals, change in a neighborhood, in a city, in a nation, in a consciousness. The performances of the Al-Mashish Theater have been credited with playing an essential role in mediating regional conflicts in Darfur, just as Sontag's Godot drew so much international attention to Sarajevo that many credit it with hastening the war's end, and inspired the city to name a public square after Sontag in 2009. Now, I am not Havel or Sontag, let's be clear, but since 2010, I have received 8 emails from young people across the country who said seeing my plays, Late Company and Rihanna Boy 95, those 2 plays in particular, made them reconsider suicide. 8 teenagers who did not take their lives. And not just because of a play, but also because of the teacher who took them to see that play. Because of the funding that was there to enable that teacher to take that student to that play. Because of the climate in the school and in our society that still values the role of theater enough to have made this funding possible. But this web of causality that brought these 8 students to my plays is such a fragile one. Now, I'm a playwright because when I was in grade 6, I got to play Gollum in a production of The Hobbit, personally adapted by my homeroom teacher, Mrs. Dans, at Henry Monroe Middle School in Ottawa. It was while I was pulling on a black rubber wetsuit and being lathered in petroleum jelly backstage by a rather handsome young male costume assistant that several future life pursuits of mine seemed to shift into focus. In grade 7, I played the Beast in a 1970s staging of The Enchantment of Beauty and the Beast, in which I wore Gene Simmons-style kiss makeup and stuck my tongue out a lot. The year after, I played the role of Oberon, King of the Fairies, yes, in a more traditional rendering of A Midsummer Night's Dream. The drama program at Henry Monroe has since been axed. It no longer exists. It was axed along with the drama programs all across the Ottawa District School Board in a spate of austerity cuts. 2 years later, our then Prime Minister Stephen Harper said, "Average Canadians have no sympathy for rich artists who gather at galas," and went on to slash $45 million in arts and culture funding, systemically undermined the CBC until it was on life support, and transformed Heritage Canada into the War of 1812 Commemoration Committee. It happened very quickly and very easily. The danger is this: as public access to arts education is cut off, only those with the means to privately access arts education through summer camps or after-school classes will be equipped with the literacy and an interest in the arts. This results in the stratification of arts access, in transforming the arts into a pastime for the elites rather than a broadly held knowledge and passion. And this, in turn, results in the arts being a soft target, a scapegoat for populist rhetoric. This allows the arts to be framed for various political ends as a leisure activity for the rich, rather than as a fundamental tool in the construction of a healthy and vital democracy. I want to live in a Canada where, should we ever need one, a figure like Václav Havel would be possible and would have a public. Thank you.